said that, we're going to have the pleasure now. Rabbi Rietti gives a shiur at this time. For those that want, please listen carefully and appreciate and enjoy.
Special thank you to Rabbi Maimon for the shiur and for including me in your broadcast, whatever it is. It's actually very humbling. My Rabbi Chaim Kramer, brother-in-laws with Rabbi Maimon, we actually go back about 40-something years. A special thank you to Nachman Fried and Zeitlin and everyone else who are involved in the Masantrin to make this shiur possible. We're in Chaf Dalet, and so I'm a little bit hoarse, a little bit run down from the weekend. Came back especially very late last night and prepared this morning. So we're in Chaf Dalet, Mitzvah G'dailiyas B'Simcha Tamid, and we're drilling down. The actual word mitzvah gedola, mitzvah, interestingly, Rabbeinu Zal himself, Rav Nachman himself, tells us it's a lashon of hischabrus. Hischabrus means that two things are coming together. Like you have a chaver, so you're friends. So what is that hischabrus? So Pashat Pshat, the hischabrus is that the mitzvah is connecting you. I think that's a good translation. Is connecting you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because we in context of what we've been learning till now, we identified that the mitzvah of simcha is a mitzvah of the mind. All the mitzvahs are categorized under different parts of your body. It's actually brought in Seder Olam from Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, one of the few svarim we have from the Tanaim. And it is the binyan, the yesod of the binyan of Sefer Charedim, who goes through the 9 different parts of the body, which all the mitzvahs are done with. And the mitzvahs shatoli belev, which depend on the mind, lev hu adas, that refers to our mitzvah of simcha. So simcha is taking place over here. That's where it starts. We talked about sasain in Torah Kaf Gimel, which is an outward revelation of simcha, the facial expression, dancing, being happy on your face, smiling, laughing, even telling divrei b'ticha. That's all in the category of sasain, but the simcha starts over here. Sham moyach, b'simcha oisius machshava. So, in understanding that simcha is actually a mitzvah of the mind, and we went through very quickly last week and a little bit the week before, slightly over 100 mitzvahs that are tali b'lev, that depend on the mind, of which many of them, actually the majority, are mitzvahs tadiros. In contrast to the famous 6, there are actually way over 60 mitzvahs that you can be mekayim every single second that you think of that mitzvah. They're not included in the Sefer HaChinuch listing. I don't think we have an answer to that question why that is so. I've asked around. I'm still asking around, and I know that Reb Chaim Kanievsky was asked this question, and so was Reb Shmuel Auerbach and Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. There's quite a few people of great stature, and they all admitted that they know that there's a discrepancy here because there's way more than 6 mitzvahs tadiros. But the fact that Rav Nachman is saying this is a mitzvah gedola, which Rav Fried pointed out earlier when we talked about how certain mitzvahs are game changers, they are multipliers. So the mitzvah of simcha, we've quoted, Orchat Tzadikim, is a multiplier by 1,000. That means when you do a mitzvah b'simcha, it's worth 1,000 yados, 1,000 times more than a mitzvah, the same mitzvah, not with simcha. The mitzvah of emunah, that is multiplied by as many times as you find the mitzvah of emunah in the Torah and in Nach, that we've quoted Malas Torah to describe. So in that sense, mitzvah gedola, simcha, is huge because it's a multiplier. There's whatever mitzvah you're doing right now, if you're doing the mitzvah of tefillin, so you've got 8 mitzvahs simultaneously. If you're wearing tefillin shel Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi simultaneously, you've got 16 mitzvahs simultaneously. 1 mitzvah for every parsha. This is Rambam. And so if you've got 8 parashas total between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, so that's already 8 mitzvahs. If you're wearing Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam simultaneously, so Rashi Shel Rosh and Shel Yad, that's 8 parashas. You add on all the others, you got 8 times or 16 times 1,000. If you're besimcha when you're wearing, Hashem loves us so much. He wants. The Ratzah doesn't mean want; it means has to. He's mechuyev to by his own lashon of Ratzon. It's going to happen no matter what. And what is that? I'm going to be mezakeh you. Lefikach. So what is the manifestation of that, Ratzon? I'm going to give you so many mitzvahs, and we're not talking about Taryag alone with all the small print. We're talking about the fact that in one single mitzvah you can be zeicha to millions and even billions of mitzvahs in a single mitzvah. We talked about this, but this is really the introduction to today, which is where we left off last time. Is that there's language in today's world, and it's always the case, which are decoys, not deliberately, but they are decoys from Hashem's reality. Why is that? Because if you've got a word in English and there's no such equivalent in Lashon HaKodesh, so that's a human perception of our reality. But it's not in Hashem's dictionary. So, for example, today we have something called mental health and mental illness. If we ask ourselves, what's the equivalent of that in Lashon HaKodesh, and then dig for Hashem's definitions, then we find that Olam HaCherus, the world of freedom, where a person is not chained by marashchara, depression, atzvus, worry, anxiety, pachad, fear. That world, which is Torah Yud, we're going to, Be'ez Hashem, we'll look at it in Tinyana, the Olam HaCherus that a person can have comes from Simcha. And that Olam HaCherus means the mind is freed from all the negativity that pulls us away from Simcha. And it has to be that way. You have to have this balance. Zelu mazeh asa Elokim. It has to be that way because the mitzvah of Simcha is so huge. Mitzvah Gedola. It is so huge. It's such a big connector to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's such a big connector to the whole Bria. You meet tzaddikim who, the Yishuv Das is like a constant. And that's because, in the language that Rabbi Maimon just used earlier, the expanded consciousness, the mind, has such a broader context that Hashem, you can do no wrong. And that everything that happens in the world, Ein Rais, there's no bad that comes from Pi Elyon. That's a pasuk in Eicha. Paragraph Gimel pasuk Lamed Ches, I believe it is. Mi Pi Elyon lo tetzeh Ra'os. The hatoiv. Rais is in the plural, toiv is in the singular, because from a human perspective, everything looks like there's more than one ra, but really it's all only one toiv. So we're going to see Be'ezrat Hashem as we get to Rav Nachman on Das, what it means that Yisurin is only experienced because I've got a chesaron in my Das, which is extraordinary. That means this is where it's really taking place. So mental illness, the way it's defined in the world today, please be machami, is a complete sheker. Because Rabbeinu Zal, Rav Nachman, is basically telling us, and he quotes Chazal all the time, Ein Adam Avera ela im kein nichnas by ruach shtus. The only way a person can do an Avera is because he's got to be insane. Ruach is a thought. It's actually coming up in this week's parasha Shlach, where Kalev had a ruach acheres. He had a different thought. In the lashon of the pasuk Perek Yudalad, pasuk Chav Dalet, in this week's parasha Shlach, ruach acheres shtei ruchais. Acheres means there was a different thought. Oh, so we've got 2 thoughts here. What are they? Achas bepeh, the achas belev. There was a thought that was generating what was coming out of his mouth, but the mind was somewhere else, had a totally different intent. He wanted to silence Bnei Yisrael. How would he get them to be silent? Because he was going to introduce his words. Oh, you think what the other Miraglim, what they're saying is the only thing that Ben Amram, that's Ben Amram, what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu? So straight away, oh good, he's on our side, he's going to speak. And that was to get them to be quiet. So he was doing it l'shem shemaim so that he can get the next words in and they would be silent. What were the next words? If Moshe Rabbeinu could take us out of Mitzrayim and split the sea and do all the miracles till now, you think he can't get us into Eretz Yisrael? We've got to be fearful of. So in the Lashon of Rashi, L'meraglim Amma, to the Meraglim, he said, Ani imachem be'etza. I'm with you. Yeshua didn't know that, by the way. It's very interesting. We know that there's two tzaddikim. Yeshua was so afraid that he would fall into the Eitzah of the Meraglim. And what was that fear? He didn't have the bracha of the tzaddik emes in his lifetime. Moshe Rabbeinu only gave a bracha. Sorry, Kalev. Kalev didn't know. Yeshua got a bracha from the tzaddik emes in his lifetime. And that's why he got the extra yud. Hashem should save him, Yeshua. He should be saved from the Eitzah of the Meraglim. This is going to be a really cool shiur. And so Ani imachem be'etza. So Kalev, who did not get the bracha from the tzaddik emes in his lifetime, did the next best thing. You go to a tzaddik emes, in this case tzaddikim amitiyim, who are no longer in this world, and therefore in a much better position to help us, because tzaddikim b'misasam, they're even greater than when they're alive. So Chazal tell us that in a number of different places. Come on, Brachas Yudches, it's a very famous Gemara. So Kalev went to Hebron to daven by the Kivrei Tzadikim, probably the earliest case of the knowledge that when you go to Kivrei Tzadikim, you can pull down Shefa of Bracha to answer one's requests. So, as far as the Meraglim are concerned, he had one intent, because he shut everyone up. Ubeliboy hayaloi maha emes. In his mind, he was telling the reality. Hashem is the reality. I'm not translating its truth, it's truth as well, but that's a Christian translation. But emes means aleph through taf, and mem in exact juxtapositions in the middle, and therefore truth is part of that. To say Hashem Elkeichem emes is the truth. It's too obvious. That was told to me by Rabbi Shimon Schwab. Emes really means reality. He's the reality. There's nothing outside of Hashem. So that's how I was able to silence them. So ruach means mind, thought rather. Shtus means foolishness. What type of foolishness? That's how we would say shtuyot, foolishness, right? Ben Yehuda, I may have shared this with you, I don't know. Ben Yehuda, who was the father of modern Hebrew, so he was in Chayton and in I think it was probably Russia, I think, where he was raised as a Frum Yid, and he had many discussions with Reb Chaim Brisker and also with Rav Kook. And on one occasion, he was speaking with Reb Chaim Brisker, and he said to Reb Chaim, "Ach, shtusim." So the Reb Chaim said, "Shtuyot." So, what does shtuyot come from? So, our language is perfect. Don't go to the translation until you've identified what does the word mean according to Chazal. And now we can figure out, okay, which word in English best reflects that word. So, we just learnt it in Perek Hey, Pasuk Aleph in Bamidbar. Ish ki tiste ishtoi. What's ki tiste? Says Rashi. Shanu Rabbeinu. Ein hane'afim no'yafim ad shetikanis behem ruach shtus. An adulterer and an adulteress, the only way they were going to fall into such a forbidden relationship is because their mind was taken over by ruach shtus. Dichtiv ki tiste. What's ki tiste? V'katuv boy no'yaf isha chas alev. Someone who is an adulterer has something missing in his brain. Chasa lev. His mind is chasa. What's his chasa? Rebbein Shalom is right here. Ein adam oiva avera ela im kein nichnas by ruach shtus. Can you imagine someone talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu? I'll give a simple mashal. You see someone speaking to the king. So he's in the king's throne room, and someone comes along and starts interrupting, say, "I need to speak to you." Say, Are you a mind? I'm speaking to the king. How will the king feel that when someone comes and asks for nadava to this guy who's speaking to the king, how does he feel? Excuse me, I'm speaking to the king. How do you do that? Wait till I come out. I'm talking to a person has to be mad in the throne room to interrupt and do something that's against the Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's total madness, completely insane. So the word shtus means insanity. Rashi explains it a little bit better. Pshuto shel mikra ki tiste tet medachi tznius. Tet means to veer away. So a person who's got a ruach shtus means their mind has veered away from ruach emes. And what's ruach emes? All the mitzvahs of the mind, simcha, emunah, avas yisrael, avas Hashem, avas hageh, bidavak to Hashem. All the mitzvahs of the mind, I am now ignoring in front of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and I'm going to a ruach shtus. What's a ruach shtus? Anger, nekama, netira, resentment, worst of all, sinner. That's what destroyed the Bais Sheni, etc. There's plenty of ruach shtus out there, but a person can only do that if he forgets Hashem's right in front of me. It's impossible. But as Rav Nosson Zal points out, that Lashon Aveira is Lashon Ava. Our language is perfect, and when we unpack it, it will teach us not only its definition, it will give us, if it's a word that's defining something that's like here, a violation, that's what Aveira is, we're going against Hashem. Contained in the word is the solution to the problem. It's Lashon Ava. It happened. The Aveira happened. Move on. Change. Work. Move. Get on. Is it time to say sorry now? Maybe. But just move on. Don't get stuck there. So Ruach Shtus really means a moment of madness. And so I'm going to say the following. Mental health, by Hashem's definition, by the Torah's definition, by what I'm understanding here, is mental health is any thought in the moment that is any of the mitzvahs of the mind. But if you're going to get hooked into the mitzvah of simcha, that is a total game changer, because the real mitzvah of simcha is mitzvah gedola liyos b'simcha tamid, b'simcha, to live liyos, to exist b'simcha, inside the simcha tamid, constantly, so that whenever we have the distraction of that black dot in all the ruach tov, all the good that's taking place, I can be Masech Das very easily, because this is the reality, and I'm going to get stuck in here. So mental health is when we're thinking tov, and mental illness is when I'm thinking ra. And it's so much easier to understand that I'm not mentally ill all the time. Is every time I have a bad thought, that's insanity. I'm actually mentally ill in that moment. But the good news, that was bad news. The good news is, how far am I away from a different thought? One year or later, I can ignore the mental ill thought and go to Hashem's only good. So this may be part of the Geula. And look at the amazing miracles of us being able to to take out most of the generals and most of the defense mechanisms of surface-to-air missiles, and we start asking ourselves, so compared to how much damage could have been potentially done by the missiles and drones that have been fired at us so far, and you start realizing, oh my gosh, is it obvious or not? Who is Shomer Al Yisrael? And I can get so stuck over here with worry and anxiety. Is this going to be another Holocaust? The whole world hates us. Or, and I've always got that choice, or I'm going to say, Rebbeinu Shalom, you made promises to us, you will never forsake us. And we're getting so close to the end that this is a huge invitation to the whole world. Whose side are you on? Are you with me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and my people and my land? Or are you voting not for me and my people and my land? The whole world is being invited for that. So Simcha is knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only good all the time. And I'll have my moments of insanity when I'm provoked to anger by my wife, by this kid's crazy behavior. And what ends up happening is I can get sucked into over here. And what I think what Rav Nachman is helping us understand from this Torah, especially when he gets into how to use every koach we have to get away from Marashchara and Atzvas, let go of all that, that is simply reality. It's not an opinion. This is Rav Nachman's opinion on life. That's not how he functioned. He said that my fire is going to last till Mashiach, and I'm assuming that Ad is Bichlal is going to include when Mashiach comes. The clarity that light gives from fire, the clarity that Rav Nachman is offering us, is simply reality. That's our Yerusha from Rav Nachman. He's giving us a Yerusha, an inheritance of absolute clarity that in the worst time in the world history, that even our own sages were afraid of being. When Mashiach comes, Atu, let him come, V'lo yechmani. I don't want to see him. Mitzapi Yeshua, what are you talking about? These are tonight. How could you say that? No. We're so afraid of the tivers and the mad things we can access with one touch, with no pressure, just a touch on a screen, that we don't want to be there. How do we know if we'll be Oimid in that Nisayan? Oh, so here we are, and we've got this huge choice. So my claim is that what I think Rav Nachman is telling us is don't get sucked into definitions that are man-made until you know what are my definitions, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My definition of how the mind should work is over 100 mitzvahs that tell you this is the flashlight that when you turn it on, a mitzvah's asay, shetali belev, it's in your mind, especially simcha, it will shine the path in front of you. The darkness on both sides of the flashlight, that's good news, because it's telling you where not to go. So the darkness is not bad. It's only bad if I don't know it's dark, or if I get curious to find out what's going on over there, because so many people told me they went into the dark and they really enjoyed it. They had so much. I got to be out of my mind. I got to hold on to this flashlight of simcha and all the mitzvahs that Tali believe that depend on my mind. I got to hold onto it tight, because the darkness on both sides, the Mara Shchara and the Asfas, is a very slippery slope to all sorts of tivers. But don't be so afraid, because we'll get to it, Bezvar Hashem, in Mem Ches, where Rav Nachman tells us that this world is a geshet sameoid. Vehaklal veha'ikar is the rule, and the main thing, the core of this is shaloi lit pachid klal. So I know that's not the wording of the song, but the song you got to go with the words of Likutei Moharan, because Rav Nachman said of himself that you can be medayik at my words. When it's my words, you can medayik them like a pasuk in the Torah. Shaloi yit pachid, lo lit pachid klal means not to cause oneself to be afraid. To be afraid, that's a totally different statement. To be afraid means there's reasons to be afraid out there, and it can make me feel afraid. I cannot be afraid unless I make myself afraid. How do I make myself afraid? By thinking thoughts of fear. Hashem, where are you? This person is triggering me, and I get angry. Well, the anger is my choice. It's my thinking about that person. It always comes down to the same thing. So mental health is good thinking, and mental illness is bad thinking. In the words of Rav Nachman in Torah Mem Tes, he says, I think 3 times, that the Yetzer Hara hema machshavas ra'os, v'hayetzer tov hema machshavas tovos. It is as simple as that. That's the ultimate definition. The Yetzer Hara is what I'm thinking. That is what Hashem doesn't want me to think. And the Yetzer Tov is the thinking that Hashem wants me to think. Simcha is the biggest game changer. There's nothing even close to it. Because ultimately, as we saw in Torah 23, is that if the simcha is very real, we can even not only pull in the atzvus and the marash karet into the simcha, and it gets completely drowned. It's insignificant. It won't affect us. More than that, you can even go chase all the memories, because that's what a Yetzer Hara is. Once it's happened, it's a memory. You can go back to those memories that were very painful, traumatic, and anxiety-causing, I call it ink because it's just an industry. It's a huge industry and a lot of money to be made, a lot of covers as well. But it comes along Rav Nachman and says, you're one thought away. You're always one thought away. And therefore I never have to believe I'm stuck over here. I never have to believe that. And in a place of cherus, which is simcha, now a person can actually go back into all the stuff that made me think I am ba'atzvas or ba'marash chera. I can actually go back there and turn it around into simcha. So we looked at that a little bit. We will be looking at it more later on. So Chazal tell us, Bereshis Rabbah, Perek Lamed Daled, and it's in Ois Yud Aleph. Rishayim hem mesurim biyad libam. The Rishayim, they're controlled by their minds. And as a reference to the Yetzer Hara. Aval tzadikim libam masur biyadam. The tzadikim, they're in control of their minds. The difference is very simple. So here we have the tzaddik, he is in control of the Yetzer Hara because he knows the enemy, and if it ever comes up, anger or marash chara or arrogance or atzvus or sinner or resentment, natira or nakama, in a split second, knowing that, oh, that's the darkness, I'm not going there. Let's go, and moves on. And in that way, serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the Yetzer Hara, because that's a mitzvah d'oraisa, ula ovdo, to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'chol levavecha. And what's that mean with your Yetzer Tov and your Yetzer Hara? How do you love Hashem with the Yetzer Hara? When, not if, when I get a Yetzer Hara thought, what do I do with it? Do I entertain it? Oh, please come in. Can I give you a coffee and keep you awake for longer, and we'll stay up all night digering about this person who really said a very unkind word to me. And I go on and on and on. Or I'm going to let go and move on. So in this sense, what Rav Nachum is basically, I think, giving us is the master key. Simcha is the master key. It's a mitzvah gedolah. It's huge, because it's a huge connector from the lashon of chibur, hischabrus. That's what Rav Nachum tells us. It's a lashon of hischabrus, and it's also huge because it's able to push away all the black, the kudas ra'is that's taking place in my mind, in my world. So essentially, the tzaddik controls his Yetzer Hara thoughts, the Rasha is controlled by his Yetzer Hara thoughts, and the Beinani, sometimes he's shofet, he rules it, and sometimes the Yetzer Hara rules him. So based on this, I think if we're going to redefine what's mental health and mental illness, it's very simple. There are many times a day that I am mentally ill. It's as simple as that. And when I get out of it and I realize Hashem is good, my wife deserves much more respect than I'm giving her. And my children, there's much more room to be done in Chavschus, considering the world that they have entered and they're part of, which is not from my generation. In fact, my generation, I would say, is probably 3 or 4 generations different than the world my children, and if you've got grandchildren, it's even exponentially broader distance between where we came into this world and our grandchildren. And so much room to be done in Chavschus. I do not have to get stuck in the mental illness, which is marash chara, atzvus, anxiety. I mentioned last week, but only right at the very end, mental illness is a problem of stinking thinking. Stinking thinking, and I choose my words deliberately. I don't mean it as niful pair. There's a Gemara in Yerushalmi, very recently in Brachas, I think it's a Perek Tes, which tells us why is it that most animal soya, most excretion from animals, you don't have to worry about saying Shema within 4 amas because it doesn't give off a bad odor. But human excretion you got to be 4 amas away from where the reach is no longer detectable. And answers the Gemara astonishingly. Human beings have a Yetzer Hara, and the Yetzer Hara thoughts create the disgusting, foul smell in the tzoya. It's extraordinary. So, mental illness is stinking thinking. And it's real because my whole body is affected by what I think. We talked about that in this Torah, where even Hachmi HaRoifim, Rabbeinu Zal admits that even the wise amongst the Roifim, not the Roifim, the wise amongst the Roifim, know that there's a connection you cannot divorce between the mind and the body, and that Simcha is not only a cure, but it's also a preventive. So, if that's really the case, then anger is mental illness. Gaiva is mental illness. Those are the top 2. According to Hilchos Deis, Perek Beis, near the beginning, Rambam gives us a very clear distinction of illness of the mind. And he says, just like a person can have an illness from the body by eating the wrong foods, a person can be ill in the mind, and he gives goes through many midas ra'is, which are the cause of me going crazy, because that's what Rush just is. It's insanity. Depression doesn't happen straight away. It happens after accumulation of days, weeks, months, and even years of thinking negatively about my spouse. And then it leads to divorce. It's not a mystery. It gets so bad I can't even see the good in her. I can't even see the good in my husband. I can't even see the good in this child out of the house. So mental illness is thinking thoughts that actually are the reason why my entire body is being drawn into the marashkara and the atzvus, and has v'shalom reduces my immune system because of the stress from the marashkara, and then I get ill because my body is vulnerable to disease outside. So, in the words of so jealousy, gaiva, all these are mental illness, but it's only a moment. I'm always one moment away from changing it. Happiness, that's mental health. That's the ultimate mental health. Netira, resentment, mental illness. You just go through all of the midas rais and midas taivas, and now you know. I'm a split. We're all split personalities. I think I shared with you. Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I. We're all split personalities. Unless a person's a tzaddik at the rate where he's constantly controlling his Yetzer Hara, machshavas rois, according to Rav Nachman Teramentes, then unless he's at that point, I am a Beinani, and a Beinani is mentally ill and mentally healthy. Up, down, up, down, up, down. So get away from this mental illness stuff. No, we're all in the same boat. We're all struggling. We're all going through that process. But I think what Rav Nachman is trying to help us do is get out of what I'm going to call zone 2. Zone 1, 2, and 3. Zone 1 is what happens to us. That you and I often don't have that much direct involvement with. Who suddenly surfaces in our life, what other people say. Now, they might be responding to me, and that's how I can change them, by being more kind, appreciative, admiring, considerate, sensitive, loving, giving, and they will change in response to a different me. But otherwise, hakol b'dei shemaim chutz mi'yirat shemaim. Whatever I'm thinking, that's the only thing I own. Everything else is Hashem turning up in my life in that moment, in that person, in that circumstance. And what happens next is very interesting, because all the Yisurin I'm suffering is what I'm thinking about. I once quoted a great line. I have suffered many setbacks in my life, which is true, by the way. I have suffered many setbacks in my life, and most of them never happened. But I suffered, because I thought, I suffered many setbacks. Most of them never even happened. It means the amount of worry that I have invested, that's called zone 2. Zone 1 is what happens to us. Zone 2 is what happens right after that. And how long will I be in zone 2? Anger. How long will I be in zone 2? Resentment. Being done chayv. Oh yeah, I got a mitzvah done chayv. But over here, I really believe it's l'toeles to speak badly about this person. I've got so many riots that they are really, 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 they're dangerous people. And you have to tell other people, and before you know it, I've created this incredible narrative where I'm stuck in zone 2, and I'm paying hundreds of dollars an hour, 5 times a week. I've got a great joke. I said it many years ago, so I don't know if it's out now. But three Jewish mothers on Broadwalk, and they're boasting how much their son shows them respect on their birthday. So Mrs. Horowitz is speaking to Mrs. Jacobson, is speaking to Mrs. Cohen. So Mrs. Horowitz turns to both of them and says, "No, what does your son do for you on your birthday? You want I should tell you what my son does? Yeah, I don't want to know, but I tell you anything. My son on my birthday, he picks me up from the home, knocks on my door. He's 6'4" tall. He gives me a hug that's going to destroy my ribs. And at the end of the driveway is this stretch limo. How they stretch it so far, I don't know how they stretch it. And he takes me to the most expensive kosher restaurant in Miami, and they're waiting for my friends. We made a birthday party just for me. It's my son. He shows me so much respect. And Mrs. Jacobson, what does your son do to show you respect on your birthday? Ah, you don't want to know. I tell you anyway. My son on my birthday, he charters the Concorde to take me from Miami Beach International to London Airport. The Concorde. arrives there 3 hours, 10 minutes later, and there's a Rolls Royce that takes me to the Ritz Hotel. The Ritz Hotel is for kings and queens and princes. He takes me to the Ritz Hotel. I arrive at the Ritz Hotel, and there waiting for me is all my friends and family from the whole world, and we are having a whole weekend party just because of my birthday. My son shows me so much respect on my birthday. And they both turn to Mrs. Cohen. Everyone knows they have not been talking in years. And Mrs. Cohen, how does your son show you respect on your birthday? Birthday, schmeckt, respect. My son doesn't need no birthday to show me respect. My son pays $400 an hour, 10 times a week to his therapist, and all he talks about is me. How long will I stay in zone 2? Is dependent on how long I'm going to let these thoughts germinate and infest inside my mind. Reb Chaim Kramer calls it watering the weeds. Watering the weeds. This is insane. This ruch stirs. Zone 3 is the solution. Moving on. Being Mesiach Das. Be b'simcha. Find Nekudas Tovos. Make an effort to think of, what do I love about this? What do I admire about this person? What can I say that is really true in my mind that can help me get out of this incredible ruch shtus about what I'm going through? And that is where Rav Nachman, I think, is telling us, when zone 1 hits, and it's hitting all the time, try get to zone 3 ASAP. Don't get stuck in zone 2. You want to go into zone 2? Oh, that's Torah 23, that after you're dancing around and possibly many circles of simcha, then you're in a place of simcha, you can actually grab or even run after the old thoughts that used to pull me down, and then it won't affect me. But if I'm going to stay in zone 2 and I get stuck in A, accuse, B, blame, C, complain, double C for compare, D, deny, E, give excuses, and I get stuck, and it's quicksand, and I start to drown, till the black dot is no longer a black dot, it's a black hole, no light's coming out, no light's coming in, and I fall into depression. And then I'm on medications because of my depression. And comes from Rav Nachman and says, get into simcha, because the mitzvah gedolah is a huge connector to everything that's good in this world. So Likutei Moharan, Torah Chaf Aleph, Ois Yud Aleph, he says all Yisurin, even Galus, is according to how much das, in my mind, is not complete. The lashon there is Kol Hatzaros, V'ha Yisurin, all our difficulties. Saras is Sar, all our agony. Yisurin, and all our suffering, the Hagalus, and even Galus, even exile, Einai elalefi erech chesaron hadas, is only according to how much das I'm mechusa. This is in Torah Chaf Aleph, and so I'm quoting elsewhere in Likutei Moharan, which is not in the printed special version for Chaf Daled. Ukeshenishlam hadas azay nishlam kol hachesronos. If the das is complete, then the chesronos, the gaps, if you want to call it chasa, are filled in. And there's no more chesronos. And this is a bechina, this is connected to, and he quotes a Gemara in Nadarim Mem Aleph, Im das kanisa, it's actually not the exact lashon there, but that's the Hebrew lashon of their Aramaic. Im das kanisa ma chasarta. If you have actually spent the time to earn enough money to be able to buy this item, then after you bought this item, you're missing nothing. So if I went to the extent to actually make the kinyan on das, and das, as we know in the spheres, is right bang in the middle between chesed and gvura. Meaning, I might interpret, oh, I had a good day, oh, I had a bad day, oh, I had a good deal today in business, a bad deal went sour. My wife's being nice today. My wife's really sour today. This kid, oh, we had a good time today. Oh, no, he's got into his tantrum again. And everything is chesed gvura, chesed gvura, chesed gvura. But das means to say there's actually no difference between the two. The only thing that's really taking place is what I'm thinking. And if I get drowned, has v'shalom, into the quicksand or water the weeds, that's where I can't be in zone 3. I can't get to the solution. I can't move on because I'm stuck. And even when someone tries to help me see what's good about it, you know what? I can't talk to you. You have no empathy. You don't understand what I'm suffering. So it might be they're really not ready. And as Rav Nachman says in Kuf Tzadik Dalet, which I think we quoted earlier, in Sichas Haran, that many times when we have Yisurim, we don't want to be mimayat them. I don't want to play them down. And yet that's what Rav Nachman is telling me. Move on. Das, Chesaron of Das is I'm stuck in Chesed and Gvura. But the Das Hashem wants us to have, and that Rav Nachman I think is really promoting, is get stuck in Simcha. Because it's a huge connector, and the more we are connected to it, the better prepared we are when, not if, when we get the next black dot that hits us, the next conversation, the next not easy deal with that particular client. So how far are you ever away from mental health? And the answer is always the same. You're one thought away. The problem with this is that it's simple. That is the problem. It's so simple, it's embarrassingly simple, that when I die and I got my feet towards the door, Sichas Haran Pei Gimel I think it is, and all of a sudden all my taivas and all my pachadim and all my yira, everything all the things I suffered, all my setbacks that I suffered, and realized, Rebbeinu Shleilam, that was B'tachlis L'Taiv for me. And I was so stuck in zone 2, instead of going to zone 3, Gamzul Taiva. Zone 3, Kol Da'avid, Rahmana L'Tavavid. That is getting fixated in Hashem's reality. And that's the zone Hashem wants me to be in. You and I are stuck in zone 1 all our lives that we're in this world. Because Olam HaSheka, Olam HaDimyan. But the real place Hashem wants us to strive to be is to shoot for Das, to shoot for Simcha. Any questions on this so far? So I'm going to share with you from... yeah.
It sounds very easy.
Yes.
Well, let's just use a simple, the Vilna Gaon. Right? Name is Vilna Gaon. What's the most difficult mitzvah in the Torah? It kind of boils down Kibbud Avim or Simcha. So these are
he said Simcha, right.
In the entire Yontif.
Right, not to be said Das and Simcha.
So both of them, Lamaisa, Kibbud Avim also really is a mind type of, even though it has actions, it's really how we perceive our parents. And Simcha, obviously, is Simcha as well.
Right.
And the Goyim comes out that the hardest mitzvah is Simcha. Kibbud Avim is number 2.
Yeah.
This is Simcha, because who can go for 7 days without saying, here's a fleeting moment of sadness.
Right.
That's the Goyim.
Right.
The same Goyim, just to point out, brought down by Chaim Volozhin on Naisa, the same Goyim who was taking a Jewish carriage driver. The carriage driver went through the pirates, whoever that is, in that part of the world, and ran over some of his crops. And he came out and began beating the Goyim, because he figured it's the Goyim instructing the guy. And this guy was just a passenger in a taxi. And the Goyim did not say that it's the driver, it's not me, because that would imply Masira. And lahalacha, the driver, you're allowed to, if you damage a guy's crops, you're not even chayiv mammon. Even if you're chayiv mammon like that, you're not chayiv makis. So it comes out of pure Masira. The guy said all his Torah, which we know is a lot, all his mitzvahs, wouldn't be worth anything. He would have returned as a kelev neveach. So that's the guy who had a lot of control. He had a lot of control. I don't know if I could. Should never had a kind of saying. Had a tremendous amount of control. Right. Yet he says Simcha is so difficult. So it seems so easy, but yet
as long as we're in Olam Hazeh, Olam HaSheka and Olam HaDimyan is going to continue surfacing in our minds and our lives. And every single instance we go through is a constant invitation. And that invitation is, do I get stuck in zone 2 or move to zone 3? Zone 3 is all about thinking that is actually going to help me be able to deal with zone 1, what just happened. It will give me the issue das, and Rav Nachman, I think, one of the greatest things he's given us is that when I get stuck in zone 2, I could be in the lowest place of zone 2, but I'm still only one hero away from jumping into zone 3. Why? And according to Rav Nachman, the lower I am and the further away I am, that awareness alone is a reason for incredible simcha, because any slightest adjustment I make in my mindset or my behavior or the words I say to get me out of this is exponentially way greater than someone who's on a much more even keel madrega and doesn't have falls like I do. And when I fall so deep down, for me to make a small amount of progress is huge. And I think that's what we are in this generation. Kramer was quoting to me, I think, I can't remember where, it's at the beginning of Sefer Kavanas, that at the time of before Mashiach comes, there's going to be a huge crunch, tremendous amount of Yisurin, and it's really, everything that we read in that last Mishnah Sota, which is a 2,000-year leap from it's actually the same Mishnah, it's a long Mishnah, Perek Tes, Mishnah Tes Vav, I think, or Tes Zion. So there's this Mishnah of everything we lost because of the demise of Rabbi Meir and Rabbeinu HaKadosh and Gamliel, Ziv Ashkina, Hashkadim, Moshe Mishalim. We lost so much. Even the Tama Paris was lost with the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and all of a sudden there's a 2,000-year leap into Ikvus the Mashiach. That when we get to the footsteps, it really means the heels. The Mashiach is so close, you can hear his heels hit the ground. Now, how far could he possibly be? Must be really close. And then it starts giving us Chutzpah Yisker, all the different items, and then the last few are almost exclusively family related. A son will start up with his father, daughter against the mother, daughter against the mother-in-law, and ends off, Oy ve'ish! Who's going to be my enemies? Oy ve'ish, anshe beisai! Family, extended family, almi lanu lishayim. Oh, ein lanu ela avinu shebashamayim. Avinu is our father. And like Rav Nachman says, when he says, Bani matem l'Hashem Elokechem, Perek Yudale, Pasuk Aleph in Dvarim, where he unpacks it from, Rav Nachman quotes from Kedushin, I think it's Lamed Vav, or Mem, I forget now, where he quotes Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says, Bani matem l'Hashem Elokechem, Bein, you're my children, Bein she'osim ratzon Hashem makom, Bein she'ein oin ratzon Hashem makom, Bani matem, you're still my children. And therefore, you can, no matter how far away a Jew is, say, Rebbeinu Shalom, you're my only father, and therefore I can turn to you. Even though my track record is disgusting, it's horrible, it's filthy, I've got them so many averas, but I can still turn to you because you're my father. And I can still behave like a child, which is when I've got a problem and I'm so far away, I'm crying, I want to be close to you. And you see Israel erupting amongst the Chilonim, and they're singing, Hashem Yitbarach Tamid Ohevoti. What's going on? They're Chilonim. Because it's speaking to the neshama, and the neshama is excited, especially b'shas yisurin, especially when missiles are flying over, and they're dancing and singing. So Bani Matem, it makes no difference how far away a person is. No matter how deep in zone 2, he can jump into zone 3 with one thought, one hero. So I want to close with a list of what Nachman brings in Torah Chaf Gimel in the first chelik, where in Torah Chaf Gimel, Ois Aleph, maybe for the future, if we have both the Torah in front of us and a Lukot Iman, so we can learn it together. So in Chaf Gimel, Ois Aleph, he says, Ki yesh panim tikdusha, there are faces that are part of the Kedusha, shehem bechinas chayim, and they correspond to lives, meaning we're investing in this world and in the next. Because chayim always means lives. There's no word for life in Lashon HaKodesh. V'yesh panim, there are faces, there's no word for face in Lashon HaKodesh, there are faces, the sitra achra of the other side, which as we know, or the 7 spheres which this world was is a manifestation of, had to have zelu maseh aseh, so there are 7, so to speak, corresponding levels of the Sitra Achra. So Sitra Achra, the other side, has 7 levels. Those, you could argue, are the 7 names of the Yitzhara, which Nachman actually quotes. Shehem Anpin Chashuchim, they are the dark faces. I think dark faces also is maybe fits into the Lashon of Cain, who's the first person to ever be depressed, that's recorded in the Torah, and the solution. And this is the Maharal. He says, whenever you want to know all the mechanics of anything, find where it first appears in the Torah, You want to know the mechanics of depression? You want to know the solution to depression? Find where it's first recorded in the Torah, and you'll find all the ingredients that will enable you to understand what makes this recipe called depression. And you'll see the solution as well. And in the first time in world history, it's an astonishing episode. Hashem speaks to Cain, who is Marash Chara Ba'atzvus. He is depressed, and the Lashon Hashem says to him, Lama Haralach, why are you angry? Anger is from Sitra Achra. Why are you angry? Now, it sounds like a crazy question because Hashem just rejected his korban. But we know, we've already discussed, there's two ways to say why. Madua is why, and Lama is also why, but they're not the same why. That's why they do not deserve to be translated the same way. That's one of the huge decoys of a translation. Baruch Hashem, most of the translations are the closer to religion, to Yiddishkeit, but the problem is they are a decoy. And that's not my language, that's the language of the Masechta Seifrim. In Perek Aleph, Ois Zayin, it says the Targum Shivim, was actually Shivim V'Shtayim, the Targum Shivim is famously called, of our Chazal, is the only day in world history that matches the Chet HaEgel. Excuse me? The Chet HaEgel was a Avodah Zarah. And Targum Shivim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nasan Belev Kol Echad Ve'echad. It was Hashem who gave them the words. So how can you say that this translation is equivalent to Avodah Zarah? And the answer is very simple. Because Avodah Zarah is a translation of God. Is taking Hashem and giving a different version of it. Avodah Zarah is serving something else, and that a translation by definition cannot be the Torah. It can't. It can be a reference to learn Lashon HaKodesh, but don't get stuck in the translation because it's a decoy. And one of the biggest translations we've got problems with is the language of depression and Marash Chara and Leiv, which means mind more than anything else. And it immediately translates as your heart, because your heart feels whatever you're thinking in real time. So, in that episode where Hashem says to Cain, Lama Charalach, why are you angry? Lama Laflu Fanecha, why have your faces fallen? Faces fallen means even a good joke won't make him happy. He won't even go like this for a second. He's so b'marash chayah, he's so b'atzvos, and what fed that? His anger comes from jealousy. He's jealous. His twin brother's korban was accepted and his wasn't. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes out of his way to give him a short speech of encouragement. It's not Musa. You can call it Musa if you want, but it's incredible encouragement. Vayom Hashem el Cain. Hashem speaks to Cain. Wow. And why are you angry? For what? Lehma. To what is it going to get you? And what will the Marash Chara, the Nafu Fanecha? Im Teitiv says, if you want to have good thoughts, you can elevate yourself. Says the Safano and Ramban, elevate means there, he'll be higher than his brother. Because now he's going to take the Marash Chara and turn it into Simcha. It's amazing. He'll be higher than your brother. And if you don't, then guess what? Lepetach chatat revetz. Your next thought, which is the next opening of your mind, because that's where we exist all the time. The next thought, if you don't let go and start thinking good, guess what? The Yetzer Hara is squatting to get the most advantage of an immediate pounce on you. That split-second difference, it will be the difference of him being moshel on you, or you, ata timshel boy. You can, because I gave you the power to be moshel, to rule over the Yetzer Hara. You're one thought away. He got so stuck in Natira, and it went into Nakama, which Chazal tell us that's the danger of Natira. Natira can become Nakama, and in Nakama a person can do Ritzicha. And that's exactly what happened. He wouldn't let go of jealousy, which fed the anger, which fed the resentment, and instead of saying, Rebbeinu Shalom's talking to me through this korban that I brought, was rejected. And it was rejected because my machshava was, what should I do with this leftover crops? Oh, you know what? I'll bring it as a present to Hashem instead of throwing it in the garbage. Really? Got a broken toy and that's what you give as a gift? You got leftovers from your meal and you give that to the king? You got to be, are you insane? This is all in the language. I'm just going to close this piece. Ampin Chashuchim, Nachman gives a list there. Ampin Chashuchim, dark faces. Mara Shchera, we've talked about that a few times. Mara is bitter and Shchera is black. That when no matter what I taste, all I can taste is the bitter ingredient, and I don't take the full context. Whatever I see the black dots, and I don't see all the white. Avodas Elilim. This is the language of Rabbeinu Zal, Rav Nachman over there. I'm serving other powers. El means power. Avodah, I'm serving other powers. It's your fault. It's your fault. I turn you into a power. You make me so mad. You make me so frustrated, and I turn you into a power. That's Avodah Zarah. Atzvos, which is what Marash Chora feeds into, and Rav Nachman in Torah Chaf Dalet, also in the first Chelek, he tells us Atzvos are actually klippos. Atzvos are the klippos, and a klippa is what's surrounding what? The klippa is surrounding all the good thinking, the fruit, the good thinking. And how far am I away from removing the klippa? One thought away. And Baldava, he adds on the Baldava. Baldava is I'm going to just translate it the way Lashon HaKodesh is. Baal means an owner, in control of. Baldava, he's a brilliant speaker. He's got such a great management of words. I'm a failure of a husband. I'm a failure of a father. I'm a failure of a son. I'm a failure of a wife. I'm a failure of a mother. I'm a failure of a daughter. And this is the Baldava. He has such a control of language that he's trying to penetrate again and again. I'm a nothing. I'm a nobody. There's no chance. I failed so many times, and I worked on my anger. I didn't get angry for months, and now I've fallen again. There's no point. I'm just never going to make it. And that is the Baldava. Now it really deserves much more attention, which we'll get into next week. The next one is Daiga. It's huge, pachad and anxiety, because it has a lot to be said on that. And Rav Nachman there in Torah 23, paragraph 5, he says nothing diminishes one's health more than Daiga, worry, anxiety, and that's where he also says all the Hachmei HaRofim, not the Rofim, those who are wise amongst the Rofim know this. Nothing will diminish a person's physical vitality, like Daiga and Atzvos. And he's talking about Mammon over there. I'm not going to go into it. Then he quotes the 7 names of the Yetzer Hara that's reported to us in Chazal, and then he says almost b'derech tzachos, but Rav Nosson understood there was something much, much deeper there. And later on, Koichavei Lev opens it up. He said, we really need to add an 8th name to the Yetzer Hara over and above what Chazal gave us. And that is Koyach HaDimyon. So I'm not going to go into it now, I'm going to touch on it much more deeper. The Koyach HaDimyon, according to the Masorah in Breslev, is Rav Nachman broke the 7 Yetzer Haras. And that made room for the Zelu Maser to bring down a whole new Yetzer Hara that is going to envelop the whole world before Mashiach. Because Bina, which is the beginning of the Mashiach coming, which we'll look at next week, that needs Zelu Maser. And to contrast the Bina, we've got to have a power that can overcome Koyach HaDimyon. Koyach HaDimyon is the power of the imagination. Never in world history was the power of imagination so powerful as today, especially with AI and the media and movies, and it's taking people and it's celebrating, glorifying atzvos and anger and making fun of people. All this is in the media, and all this Lashon Hara, Motzi Shemra, it's completely legitimate. And doing the worst of Eiras, that is in getting into our minds, so that even with a flashlight on, you can't see anything because the dark is so thick. So Rav Nachman, I'm not going into it now, he kind of smiled as Rav Nosson records, and he knew there was something much more over there, and we're going to look at what that is. What did Rav Nachman bring to stand against the Koyach HaDimyon? In the schus of that, which will be zeicha to become more aware of my Marash Chora, the thoughts that pull me down and keep me in zone 2, and realize that's where I am. So the awareness alone allows me, Ayeka, eventually, where are you? Which is the beginning of getting out. That's Torah Ein Ches, because one day maybe we'll see it. But that's really what we're looking for. The mitzvah Kedai Lisa B'Simcha Tamid is a metzias. How do I get to stay there? And that's what we're learning all about. Get out of zone 2. Thank you, Rabbi.
Close your feet. Shkaya.
Okay, it was beautiful. To add to your
Please.